Brian Wilson, Mary Catherine Ham, today's newsmakers, and you, the Morning Majority. 105.9 FM. And AM 630.
8:37 on the Morning Majority. The Oscars were last night. I watched for a little while before I had to succumb to sleep and go to bed because we get up so very early here. So have read all there is to read about them. But look, there's a guy who stayed up and watched every minute of it, and he knows all about it. He is Richard Roeper, a noted film critic for the Chicago Sun-Times. He also appears on our sister station in Chicago, WLS, which, by the way, stands for the world's largest station. You know? Richard, how are you?
Hey, Brian, you actually did what a lot of the people who were at the Academy Awards did. You watched it for a while, and then you fell asleep.
Oh, harsh.
Well, look, I guess all the talk is about this silent movie called The Artist, and it won Best Picture. Are you surprised by that?
No, it looked like it was the clear favorite in the weeks leading up to the Oscars, and it is one of those movies that most people haven't seen because they hear it's silent and it's in black and white, and it's got this French guy in it. It's actually a real mainstream kind of movie when you see it. It's funny and it's musical, and obviously it's a tribute to the movies. But it isn't a film yet that has really caught on with American audiences. Of course, it will get a bump out of winning Best Picture.
I thought it was interesting. Some have said, I'm not sure this is, or some of I've heard talk about how they're not sure it's worthy of the best film. And it seems to me when you go outside the box enough with a silent Franco-American film, black and white, that you've met all the bars for being qualified for a best film, haven't you?
Well, it certainly had a lot of points for being something unusual.
Right.
And the next French silent black and white film probably won't be nominated for Best Picture, but I would say there's some validity to that observation that as far as Best Picture goes, it's one of the lighter Best Pictures. It's a lot more Shakespeare in Love than, the more serious movies that have won Best Pictures over the years, which usually you get a heavier film will win Best Picture.
All right, so now I'm looking here at the list on my computer and it says that Hugo won a lot of technical awards. It got, let's see, I've got the whole list here. It got art direction, cinematography, costume design. It picked up film editing, sound editing, and sound mixing, visual effects. That's all, that sounds like a pretty impressive lineup, but all technical kind of things.
Which is interesting, too, because if it's that impressive technically, how does Martin Scorsese not win Best Director? Because you think that that's the ultimate in being a film technician and overseeing all that. And as far as sound mixing and sound editing go, I'm not even sure the sound engineers can tell you exactly the difference between those two.
This is a year when a lot of award shows have actually seen a bump in viewers. I doubt the Academy Awards will see the same. What was the reason for sort of the low buzz this year?
Well, I think part of it is what we touched on, the fact that The Artist was the front runner.
Right.
The Help was about the only really big commercial film. That's a movie I think it did about $100 million. That was, a real contender for Best Picture. And even in the acting categories. Now, Meryl Streep scored a little bit of an upset for winning in The Iron Lady. Of course, Meryl Streep's one of the most noted actresses of our time, but people didn't like that movie that much, and most American audiences never went and saw it. So there just wasn't that much of a buzz around the films themselves leading up to the awards.
Who was the favorite for that category that she upset?
Viola Davis from The Help.
Oh, okay. And it was Octavia Spencer who won in the supporting actress category for that movie.
And another real strange thing, Guy, is in the editing category, The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo won, and yet it wasn't up for Best Picture, so it's almost as if they're saying what was the best edited movie, then how could it not be one of the better movies? Are they saying the director was no good and they had to save him? It doesn't make a lot of sense.
All right, I want to talk about, and I almost hate to bring it up, Sacha Baron Cohen. And on the red carpet, he spilled what he said were in character as this character, the dictator, he's got a movie coming out, and he spilled what he said was an urn full of ashes of Kim Jong-il all over Ryan Seacrest. Ryan Seacrest clearly not amused by this, but there was a big kerfuffle leading up to this about whether or not he's even going to be allowed to come on the red carpet in character.
Yeah, they didn't. The Academy always says this is not a place to promote movies. This is a place to celebrate the previous year's movies. But the really offensive thing wasn't him being the dictator, was that it wasn't funny. Maybe they should have looked over the routine first. I like Sacha Baron Cohen. It seems like he's kind of done this routine before. It was a little bit amusing to see Ryan Seacrest finally get a little ruffled by something. He was way more upset than any of the women would have been if their dress had been dusted.
we had sort of a retooling of the Academy Awards this year. Last year with Anne Hathaway and James Franco was an attempt to sort of reach out to a younger demographic, have some young hip hosts. Didn't quite work the way they had wanted it to. They go back to Billy Crystal this year. How do you think that decision came off, and what do you think is the direction the Academy should take for making this a successful telecast?
I think they have to get a compromise somewhere. I mean, Billy Crystal was exactly what you'd expect from Billy Crystal. He did the same routine he always done. He's a complete pro, some great ad-libs, but he's very schmaltzy and old-school showbiz, whereas James Franco and Anne Hathaway thought they were too cool for the room, and they didn't try. I think we saw glimpses of what they should maybe do, like when Will Ferrell came out with Zach Galifianakis, and they were funny in a 5-minute bit. Emma Stone was funny in her little bit. Maybe, and they've done this in the past with the Oscars, you have one kind of master of ceremonies, but 6 or 7 different hosts, each who get, a half hour, 20 minutes or so of time on screen, and then you move on to somebody else.
I could see that. It's a tough gig. I mean, and I kind of like the idea of comics over actors, just because comics know how to react to a room and work it a little bit.
Exactly.
I want to ask you, you had those statistics about the makeup of the Academy, which was a little surprising to us.
The LA Times looked into it and found the demographics of the Academy not quite a reflection of America, as it were. People younger than 50 make up 14% of the Academy, 77% white, or 77% male, and 94% white. I'm surprised coming from Hollywood.
The reason for that is once you're in the Academy, they almost never ask you to bow out. So there are members of the Academy who haven't worked in the business for 20, 30, 40 years. If you're asked to enter, you're asked to join, you're in, and they keep it fairly limited so they don't have a lot of new members. So there's just not room right now. It sounds a little harsh, but like, well, when another 1,000 people die, it might become younger and a little more diverse. But that's the reality of it. At the Oscars for years, it was always great. Ernest Borgnine had the smartest move. He would always show up first, and he was in the Academy, of course, because he won for Marty in 1955.
Wow.
But Ernie and his wife would show up first because the press would be like, hey, there's an Oscar winner. And if he had showed up later in the day, nobody would have talked to him.
Is that something the Academy needs to think about, finding a way to sort of work on, aside from people just dying?
The Academy moves in ways so mysterious and convoluted, they make the Iowa caucuses look perfectly streamlined. They do things the way they want to do them. They're very resistant to change. And then when they make changes, it's very strange. All of a sudden it's like, oh, we're going to have 9 Best Picture nominees and 2 nominees for Best Song. Okay. And you can't really, there's no rhyme nor reason to their methodology.
I haven't heard anything about a controversy, that somebody said something dumb or controversial when they accepted their award last night. I guess we got out unscathed this year.
Yeah, it's a little disappointing. You want that. You want to have a little moment where somebody, shouts some bizarre obscure political slogan or says something really ridiculous, but it was mostly pros and veterans who won last night. There was an old pro hosting. And that's the thing, too. They did get it, I think, about 3 hours and 9 minutes. That's actually pretty brisk for an Oscar show.
Wow, not bad. All right, well, listen, Richard, it's good to have you. Thanks for your expertise on this. We greatly appreciate it.